Welcome back to First Take. It is time now for a quick take, and we go to Brian Windhorst here. Wendy, what is the most underrated move so far of free agency?
Yeah, I'd like to highlight what the Atlanta Hawks did last night in getting Nickeil Alexander-Walker in a sign-and-trade deal from the Timberwolves. The Wolves really wanted to keep him, but they had to spend so much money on re-signing Naz Reid and Julius Randle that he just didn't fit under their second apron. So they were willing to participate in a sign-and-trade. Alexander Walker has been a really important piece to the Wolves getting to the conference finals the last 2 years. He has great length. He defends. He can play multiple positions. He can defend multiple positions. And when you've got a player like Trae Young, you need to have defensive versatility to help protect him. And that's what the Hawks have built here, especially with Dyson Daniels, who they acquired last year in trade, and now Nickeil Alexander-Walker on the other side. Really, the Hawks with a nice move here. They paid him an average of about $15.5 million a year, which is a really good number in today's day and age for a quality guard like this. He was probably, of the unrestricted free agents, he was probably the most desirable guard out there. And the Hawks were able to get it done in addition to landing Kristaps Porzingis last week in a draft day move. So really impressive, nice move by the Hawks to upgrade their overall roster.
Yeah.
The Hawks last week also got the number one overall pick, or potential number one overall pick in next year's draft from the New Orleans Pelicans in that draft night trade, going down a few slots in the draft, but getting a hugely valuable and protected pick next year. They have gone out and gotten guys who shoot the ball, have length for defensive purposes. I think they got a chance to be a top 4 team in the East and are taking advantage of some of these other teams, both inactivity and injuries across the conference.
The Trae Young Invitational is over. They are not a play-in team anymore. This is definitely a top 4 team in the East. I said that Houston has been pitching a perfect game in the offseason. Hawks have been pitching a no-hitter. They've been incredible with all their moves, getting the defense around Trae Young, and that pick. Still trying to figure out what the Pelicans are doing. This is going to be a lottery pick that they're getting to add to that team next year.
Which is good news. Look, the Hawks have been good. Their defense has not been great. Bottom half of the league in defensive efficiency the last handful of years with these moves. That obviously upgrades on the defensive side. Let's go to the issues with the New York Knicks now, because they still do not have a head coach, but it doesn't mean they're necessarily not trying. There's been a lot of no thank yous and no second interviews, but it appears one candidate is worthy of interview number 2, and that would be Mike Brown. Shams Charania is reporting that Brown is now emerging as a strong candidate for the Knicks after he was fired by the Sacramento Kings this year. Brown was also an assistant with the Warriors and a former head coach of the Cavs and the Lakers. But now this opens up to a bigger question, and I feel like we've been discussing this a lot, and especially now that we're in this free agency land. Is the Knicks even a desirable coaching job at this point? Wendy, what do you think?
Absolutely, it's a desirable coaching job. They have a top 6 or 7 already built out, installed. They are in the Eastern Conference, where their health as a team has enabled them to rise up the ranks. I mean, they are in a better position than some of their other rivals just because they're able to be healthy. Also, Jalen Brunson's willingness to take a lesser contract a year ago, which was really an underrated move at the time, is kept the Knicks out of the second apron. So that is going to enable them to continue to add to this roster. I know it may not manifest itself in major free agent moves yesterday, today, or this week, but they can do things in trades and things that other teams in their position cannot going forward. And if you're the individual, whether it's Mike Brown or somebody else, you're going to get paid a ton of money because they just fired a guy who made the conference finals. And Mike Brown still owed $20 million by the Sacramento Kings, he doesn't have to do anything, and he's going to get a ton of money the next couple of years. If he's the choice, he's going to get a ton of money for this. It's a high pressure job, it's a high expectation job, and all that sort of stuff. But it's very good NBA job.
I know someone who disagrees with you.
I wouldn't want to take this job. Now, when you talk about the $20 million and all that means a little something too. But in terms of all things being equal, you're coming into a situation where your expectation is championship or bust. They made the Eastern Conference Finals. They got rid of the coach. And now you have to come in and take a team that is not a perfect team, that has its flaws, and you have to make it at least to the NBA Finals. That is a ton of pressure in New York City, in Madison Square Garden. Now, Mike Brown is somebody who has handled a lot of pressure. He had to get Coach LeBron and try to win a championship with LeBron. He went to the Lakers with Kobe and them. Did not quite work out when he went there. But he understands pressure. But the type of stuff that you have to deal with to get to this, to do this, and especially when you look at the fact that Tibbs, when he left, The Knicks have not been able to find anybody that I can see as a better coach, as just an upgrade from Tibbs from start to like. I just don't see it. Right. And so when you're bringing in somebody who is not going to get that excitement from everybody that says this is better than the guy that we had, and you have to make it to the finals, that's just a recipe for disaster.
No disrespect, but that is a crazy take. Because if you
That's what this show is for.
if you are an NBA coach, if you can walk into a team with this kind of talent, with this kind of expectations, with this kind of money coming to you, it's a no-brainer job to take. It's a great job. It's one of the best jobs in the league. Now, it isn't a job that comes without pressure or expectations. It is going to be very difficult for a guy to walk in and succeed in this job because, to David's point, what he's 100% right on is the only thing that's going to be successful for a team for the Knicks next year, for this Knicks team, is to make the NBA Finals. There is nothing less than that that's going to be seen as a success when you look at the injuries across the conference, when you look at the situation the Knicks are in, having fired Tom Thibodeau for making the conference finals. They lose in the first or second round. That's going to be a catastrophic failure. Who knows what the reaction to that will be. But if you're a coach in the NBA, there are very few opportunities where you can walk into a job with the kind of talent and situation the Knicks have. The thing that's ironic and interesting about this situation New York is in is typically every year there's like one guy sitting out there that's the obvious big candidate to go get, right? For this year, for whatever reason, that candidate was not there. So the Knicks went and tried to get Jason Kidd and Billy Donovan and Quinn Snyder, and they went down the list of these coaches that were hired by teams and employed by teams, and those teams wouldn't let them out. So now they've gone through this process of waiting to see who they're going to land. I mean, look, we could look back on this a year from now and say the Knicks find their Joe Torre, who 30 years ago got hired by the Yankees. Very similar situation. Buck Showalter got fired. They went a long time looking for a coach. Okay. That is the situation everybody's in.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, your expectation is, I mean, think about a couple years ago or last year, first or second round for this Knicks was a good season. Now they're going to burn Madison Square Garden if you don't make the finals, if you lose on the play. That is an intense amount of pressure. You are a failure if you do not take a Knicks team that has not been to the finals this century to the finals. That is unreal pressure.
That's what the money's for.
That's right.
That's why you get paid all. Yeah, pressure builds diamonds, right? That's the whole point of it. The situation I just find confusing. They're not really able to make moves in free agency right now because they don't have a head coach. And what did Windy say in the first block? Today's NBA needs to have depth, and that is the one thing that the New York Knicks have none of.
I wouldn't necessarily quite go that far. They've agreed to get Jordan Clarkson signed, and they have their taxpayers mid-level exception to go sign somebody else. And this is a team that's the cake is largely baked. There's not a lot of stuff they're going to do right now. Brian's right. They can make trades, but they have their top 7 guys. They need to add a couple depth pieces.
That's not enough.
Well, 7 is pretty close to what you need. They've now added Jordan Clarkson. If they sign 1 or 2 more guys this summer, they're going to feel good about what they have. Like, to me, they don't need to go out and fundamentally remake the roster like some of these other teams are talking
Shae,
about.
Really quick, one
Shae,
player.
they
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Shae, they don't. It's not ideal to fire your coach after he's just had your best season in 25 years, okay? But if you don't have a high draft pick and you don't have a lot of money to spend in free agency, it's not the end of the world not to have your coach for those 2 things. It's not perfect, but the Knicks haven't lost anything with this.
Really quick, before we go to break here, Wendy, or anyone, why aren't they talking to Michael Malone? That does seem like a candidate that's floating out there that has not been at all in conversations with the Knicks.
I don't think that's a perfect fit.
Okay, and we'll leave it right there. And we'll have our second night of coverage, 3 more hours beginning at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific on ESPN. Players can sign contracts beginning July 6th. You know, one of the busiest teams in the NBA free agency was the Rockets. They picked up Dorian Finney-Smith and Clint Capella. They also retained a few of their own in Fred VanVleet, Steven Adams, and Jabari Smith Jr. Another team, though, in the West that was busy was the Denver Nuggets. Michael Porter Jr. was traded to the Nets, and in return, they got Cam Johnson. The Nuggets are also bringing back Bruce Brown, who won the title with them back in 2023. What about the Mavericks? They got D'Angelo Russell. He averaged a career low in points per game and field goal percentage, but should get a lot more run in Dallas with Kyrie Irving out to start the year with that torn ACL. Overall, teams have spent $1.42 billion in free agency. That is, billions with a B. That doesn't even include player options like LeBron James, which was above $52 million. And so here we are now back with David, Windy, and Tim. And Windy, you saw all those moves, but let's talk more about some teams that were maybe not as active. And that leads me to ask, which team is under the most pressure now to make a move in free agency?
Yeah, the Lakers need a starting center. In fact, the Lakers need a starting center and a backup center, quite frankly. And so we've seen a number of centers come off the board in the first few hours of free agency, and the Lakers were not able to do that. Now, there is no timeline here. It's not like you get penalized if you don't do a deal immediately. They have to have a team in place by the fall. But, there was a couple of people that, looked like they would be good fits for them that went elsewhere. I think the real surprising one was Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez was a starter level player in Milwaukee, a core piece of that team for the last 7 years. Still is a very good defensive player and a floor stretcher. He's not the rim runner, roller to the basket type player that is, maybe more ideal for Luka Doncic, but certainly a piece that would have helped the Lakers out. And he leaves a potential starting job in Milwaukee, passes on the Lakers, who I do think had some interest in him, where he would have probably been a good chance to be the starter, and takes a backup job for just 1 full year guaranteed with the Clippers. So that was interesting. So the Lakers are under some pressure to get that center. No matter where LeBron is about his investment with what the team is doing, no matter where Luka is with his contract, they have to have a starting center to be able to play and balance their roster out by the fall. And they have known this since February. They did not get it done in the regular season. They have not gotten it done in and around the draft. They have not gotten it done in the first night of free agency. So they've got to make sure they get a player. And the whole league knows it. And the longer this goes, the higher the price will be, whether it's to sign a player or whether it's in via trade.
Do you agree? Is that the team under the most pressure in the Lakers?
I certainly think the Lakers are under a ton of pressure, and I certainly agree with Brian that they need to get a center, and frankly have from the moment they traded for Luka Doncic back in January. But just to change things up a little bit, I'm going to say the Milwaukee Bucks, because we have spent months, if not the last couple of years, talking about what is the future of Giannis Antetokounmpo and where is he going to be playing moving forward. And for the Milwaukee Bucks, who have now lost 3 years in a row in the first round, who now have Damian Lillard, who's probably going to miss the whole season with a torn Achilles, we're now looking at a team that so far in free agency has re-signed Bobby Portis, re-signed Kevin Porter Jr., re-signed Gary Trent, and has lost Brook Lopez in free agency. And by the way, that was a Milwaukee Bucks team, including Damian Lillard for half of that series, that lost in 5 games to the Indiana Pacers in the first round of the playoffs. That is not a team that is close to being a contending team. That is not a team that's close to being a factor, which is what you'd think a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo would want to be at this point in his career. So there's still time for the Bucks left to make moves. They still have some flexibility to add salary. We'll see if they go add a center to replace Brook Lopez here over the next 24 hours or so. We'll see if they can make some trades to try to improve this roster. But the question of the summer is Giannis Antetokounmpo satisfied and happy with this Bucks roster? The answer is yes, and he wants to stay in Milwaukee. That's awesome. Good for him. He has earned and deserved that right. If he wants to play his whole career with the Bucks, that's great. If he is looking around and thinking, hey, do I want to finish my career in Milwaukee? Do I want to have a chance to compete for a title? Do I want to have a chance to compete for being one of the elite teams in the conference? This Bucks team is not a top 4 team in the East. They have a lot of work to do to get there. And if they don't, it's going to only renew the questions about what Giannis' future might look like.
Okay, but center seems to be the hot commodity right now between the Lakers, obviously, and the Bucks. And yes, keeping your stars happy is another layer to this whole thing. Do you agree with Tim and Wendy? Is it the Lakers, the Bucks, or you got another team?
Well, those two teams are definitely under a lot of pressure. I think the thing with those two teams is that I would say that there's not much out there that can move them into contention, right? Like they can make all the moves that they can try to make, but I don't think there's something that you could say we wake up, they made a trade, they got a center, they got a little bit of depth, and now suddenly they are top 4 in their respective conferences. I think the one team that I think could move into contention that needs to make a certain move very quickly is the Golden State Warriors. They need to figure out what to do with this Kuminga thing, and they need to do it pretty fast. Like this Steph Curry, first of all, the 2 timelines thing has not worked out, right? And so now Kuminga is the last sort of bastion of that move that they have, and they need to figure out what they're going to do with him and what they can build around Stephen Curry for those last couple of years that they can get, deeper into the playoffs. We saw last year they got second round. They maybe could have beaten Minnesota if Steph Curry was healthy. We'll never know. But I think that this Kuminga thing is the missing piece that they can figure out. Can we get some other guys in there? Can we get a little bit more depth? Can we get something to build around him? It's been too much of this. Will he or won't he with this guy? They need to figure out how to maximize his value.
It's a bad year to be a restricted free agent. It's always tough to be a restricted free agent, but right now there's only a couple of teams that at the start of free agency that had money to spend that could offer, and those teams have pretty much gone other directions. They have not prioritized Kuminga, so the only way Kuminga can get a salary that he wants is through a sign and trade, which requires the Warriors to cooperate. It's a historic problem. It's particularly prickly this year. So the Warriors themselves, as David laid out there, are going to try. They need to use Kuminga to get another piece. So where I suspect this is headed is the Warriors investing in a contract in Jonathan Kuminga that, while they would never admit it at the press conference, is specifically designed to be traded later on. That they sign him to a deal that they intend to trade. They did this rather famously with D'Angelo Russell when Kevin Durant wanted to leave. You know, they signed D'Angelo Russell, they hugged him, they posed for photos with him, and they thought about trading him about 15 minutes later. And that is something that they may end up with Kuminga. The thing about it is that you want Kuminga to be in a contract that he's willing to sign that's representative of what he thinks his value is, and you want his value to remain high, and his value has been all over the place because of the way the Warriors have played with them. But the Warriors are a dangerous team when it comes to transactions. Number one, if indeed they get Kuminga into a contract, whether it's a sign and trade now or it's something that they sign him to now and trade him later, they have their draft assets. They can really spice up a pick with draft picks, and they're a team that people want to play for, the stars want to play for. So they have to be thinking about the future, as well as how are they going to necessarily, compete in October, but what they might be able to do in January and February. Because remember, people were calling for them to do something last year. They waited and they were patient, ended up with Jimmy Butler.
Okay. So it sounds like Lakers, Warriors, Bucks. Is there any other team we would throw into the pot that's under pressure right now to do something in free agency? Are we happy with this list? Obviously, the Kuminga situation is pressing with the Warriors, but as Wendy pointed out, obviously they went and traded for Jimmy Butler, and if they can figure out how to do this, they're a dangerous team. Anyone else we throw in there? Warriors, Lakers, Bucks. You're on the clock.
I mean, the thing about free agency,
I think that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Wendy.
The Nuggets are under an interesting spot. So they made a big move yesterday. We talked about it a little bit earlier by trading for Cam Johnson. The Nuggets have got to be sitting there thinking about these last 2 years. They won the title 2 years ago. Then they lost to the Wolves in 7 games. Then they lost to the Thunder in 7 games this year. And they lost to the Thunder in large part because they ran out of players at the end. And so they made this deal. And this deal brings in a player who a lot of people think is going to be a perfect fit alongside Nickeil Jokic. And it opens up a lot of salary maneuvering room. But they're also very expensive. And they're in the repeater tax right now. And every dollar they spend is costing their ownership $4 or $5. And so they're going to approach Nickeil Jokic with a contract extension in the coming days. And they're going to say, hey, would you like to take 3 more years and $205 million to lock yourself up through your prime with us? And I don't know what Jokic is going to say. And if I'm Jokic and I'm looking at the roster, I'm saying, okay, you've opened up this money. Did you open up this money to save on luxury tax, or did you open up this money to help build out our depth? They did sign Bruce Brown yesterday, and that he's was a key piece in their 2023 team. But they have maneuverability on their roster right now, and they also have no luxury tax bill. So which is it going to be? Is it going to be maneuverability or luxury tax bill when you go to Nickeil Jokic? So I don't think Jokic is going anywhere, to be clear, but their owner, Josh Kroenke, openly admitted he's not sure whether Jokic is going to sign this deal, because if he waits a year, he can get a better contract offer. Well, he also may consider what the team is doing with its roster when he considers whether to sign it now.
Okay, well, that would be a perplexing situation if Nikola Jokic decides not to sign a max contract or to stay with the Nuggets. But they did make some moves, as you just pointed out.